All right, guys. Good afternoon, and welcome to the social anxiety workshop. Thank you guys for joining in on Saturday afternoon. So just to get started, I am a psychologist at MindTribe, and in terms of my specialization, I finished my master's in clinical psychology from CMI University in Bangalore, and I kind of specialize in a lot of anxiety, depression, various different mood disorders, and relationship issues. That's just a little bit about me. I will also now introduce our co-host. It's Sanjeevni. Sanjeevni, can you just introduce yourself to everyone?
Sure. Thank you, Zana. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you for joining today's workshop. My name is Sanjeevni, and I'm the co-host for today. And I work as a psychologist here at MindTribe. I've completed a master's in clinical psychology, and I specialize in areas such as anxiety, overthinking, relationship concerns, narcissistic abuse, and sleep concerns. So before we get started, I'd like to go over some ground rules to ensure a smooth and productive workshop. Please keep your mics muted to minimize background noise. Keep your cameras off to maintain focus on the content and discussions. Be respectful by allowing others to finish speaking before responding. If you would like to speak, please raise your hand or use the chat box to share your thoughts or questions. Let's all maintain decorum during the workshop to ensure a respectful and productive environment. Now I'll hand it over to Zana.
Yeah, and please just also keep a note that you cannot record or take screenshots of anything during this presentation, since it's the copyright of MindTribe and it's the property of MindTribe. Okay, so just a little brief overview of what we'll be going through during this workshop. We'll be looking at what social anxiety is, when it happens, a little bit of differentiation between introversion and social anxiety, and also looking a little bit about extroversion as well. Kind of debunking a few myths and looking at the effects of social anxiety, and then looking at, how to cope with them and maintaining a healthy mechanism rather than an unhealthy one. Okay, so what is social anxiety? So would anyone like to maybe just, unmute themselves and tell me what they feel social anxiety is, or what they think it is, or a few words that they associate with social anxiety? You can use the chat box if you're not comfortable to unmute. Yes, Sunila?
I think so. It is when person hesitates to meet any person or going out in a social gathering, especially. They do not feel like communicating to new person. There is hesitation and all such type of things are there.
Yes, definitely. Yeah. Okay. Kanvi says uneasiness in body while in public. Yes, definitely. Zainab says fear of social settings and being perceived a certain way. Yes. And then Zainab says anxiety during social settings. Yes, definitely. Habiba says fear of people. Yes. Fear of strangers. Definitely. Sunila, you've raised your hand again. Okay. Feeling anxious often that people judge us. Definitely. Suffocated among people. Yes. Uneasiness we feel in social gathering. Fear of speaking up in a group of strangers. Definitely. Yeah, not feeling yourself around people. Yeah. Okay, guys. So you guys have a relatively good picture of what social anxiety is and what it looks like. But now we'll go into a little more detail. So just to kind of break the ice, I have a small bingo up for you guys, which is basically there are around 8 statements here, and I will read them out. And if you guys feel this, then you can use the thumbs up emoji, right, to just keep it interactive, and also just keep a note of how many statements are true for you, and then we can also just discuss the scores. So the first statement is being the center of attention. So when do you feel anxious when you're being the center of attention? Yes. Okay. Number two is giving a speech. Okay. Number three, talking to new people. Okay. And number four, dealing with authority figures. Okay. Harumuga says all of the above. Okay. Attending social gatherings. Yep. Okay. Eating in public. Making eye contact. Okay. Public speaking. Yeah. Okay. So I think a lot of us face all of these, anxieties, when it comes to these situations. I saw a lot of thumbs up for majority of them. So, okay. So says 5 out of 8. Would anyone else like to share how much they got? Okay. 4 out of 8, 8 out of 8. All right, guys. So this is just a small icebreaker just to kind of get you guys to interact and get to know what a brief intro to social anxiety basically. So in a more scientific definition kind of way, social anxiety is basically a mental health condition where a person has an intense fear of being judged, criticized, or embarrassed in social situations. Right? It's more than just shyness. It can cause physical symptoms. It can have emotional symptoms. It can have a plethora of different symptoms, and it might make someone avoid everyday activities like talking to people, making phone calls, or even going to events. Okay. So now, how to identify social anxiety and what it basically looks like, right? So as I mentioned, it has like various different types of symptoms. So it has physical symptoms, emotional signs, it has different thinking patterns, and also it has behavioral, overt behavior symptoms. So moving on to the physical symptoms of social anxiety. So some people may experience, a lot of blushing, increased heartbeat, sweating in clammy hands, right? Trembling or shaking when they're asked to maybe do something in public. They may feel a little dizzy as well. A lot of nausea, okay, rapid or shallow breathing, and also feelings of suffocation. These are some physical symptoms that you may experience when you're having that anxiety episode. You may not experience all of them, but definitely one or two for sure. Okay, so now moving on to the emotional signs. So emotional signs kind of consist of, let's say, self-consciousness and worry. So what this kind of means is, constantly feeling overly aware of yourself in social situations, right? About how you may be perceived or what others may think of you, okay, things like that. And then the second one is feelings of being watched and judged. So you have this strong sense that others are like legit scrutinizing your actions, your appearance, your words, right? Even if they're not, they couldn't care less, but you feel like they're like really like watching every step that you take, right? And then overthinking and rumination. So, like kind of replaying the social interactions in your head. So analyzing what you said or did, and, fearing that you may have come off as weird or awkward, right? So trying to like kind of like psychoanalyzing every small action or, word that you've said and trying to analyze it and feeling, fear that, oh my God, what if I did something wrong? What if I said something wrong? What if, she felt this way because I said this? So those kind of thing. And that kind of leads to an overthinking spiral. Okay. And then the last one is fear of embarrassment or humiliation. So basically dreading the possibility of, making a mistake or being laughed at, and that kind of tends to, make you avoid the situation altogether because you don't want to feel like, belittled or you don't want to feel humiliated. So moving on to the unhelpful thinking styles that people with social anxiety kind of adopt. The first one is mind reading. Okay, so an example is the fact someone, you may feel like they think I'm boring. So this is an example because this is an example of mind reading, because what mind reading is that you end up assuming what others are thinking. Okay, usually something negative, and usually there is no real evidence to prove that these people are actually thinking that way, right? So your mind just assumes that they're thinking this way. And then another thinking pattern is prediction. So an example is, I'm going to mess this up. So what prediction is that it's expecting the worst to happen in social situations even before anything begins itself, right? So you just predict that it's going to happen. It's going to go negative. You just predict that you're going to make a fool of yourself. You're going to, fall off the stage. This is going to happen. That's going to happen. So you end up making these negative predictions before anything even starts, or before you even take the first step. And the third one is comparison and despairing. So an example of this is, everyone else is so confident, I'm not good enough. So this, constant comparison between, yourself and others in a negative way, right? So this kind of increases your feeling of hopelessness and defeated, right? So you feel defeated as a result, and this just kind of fuels your negative thought process. And the final one is catastrophizing, right? So an example is, if I say something wrong, everyone will laugh at me and I'll never recover. So what catastrophizing basically is it's blowing things out of proportion and imagining the worst case scenario in every situation. So you kind of imagine, you end up predicting the worst case scenario for anything that happens, right? So you kind of think of the worst outcome possible, and you think that is what is going to happen. Now, moving on to some of the behavioral symptoms. So these are kind of like overt actions or behaviors you may be, doing, which kind of identify that, you may have some form of social anxiety. So the first one is avoiding social situations. So, things like skipping parties, gatherings, public speaking, or any situation where, you might be judged or, put on the spot, something like that, you will tend to avoid that. And then the next one is staying quiet and avoiding eye contact. Okay, so keeping, conversations to a minimum, avoiding drawing attention to yourself, and, avoidance in making eye contact to kind of make you feel less visible is another symptom of social anxiety. And then, of course, blending into the background, right? So choosing to stay on the sidelines rather than participating, often to avoid being noticed or judged. And then the final one is avoiding interaction with strangers specifically, right? So not initiating any conversation or speaking to unfamiliar people, right? Even for simple things like asking for help or ordering food, you just tend to be there and try to figure it out on your own. You will never, speak up and ask for help, right? So these kind of things are also very, critical and very characteristic of social anxiety. Okay, so now we're going to come to the causes of social anxiety, right? So what causes social anxiety? Of course, there are many more, right? Apart from these four, but these are majorly the major ones, right, that we see consistently in our clients. So the first one is parenting style. Okay, so having overprotective, critical, or controlling parenting can limit a child's confidence and reinforce fear of making mistakes or being judged. Okay, so having this type of parents who keep on limiting the child, like, don't do this, don't do that, this is wrong, that kind of thing, or being very harsh on the kids can always make them a little skeptical to try out new things because they're just scared that what if I make a mistake or what if I'm doing something wrong. So these type of thoughts are kind of inbuilt into that child as they grow up, right? Our next one is bullying, right? So teasing or being mocked, excluded or humiliated, especially during your schooling years, right? Because these are the key developmental years of your life. So this can lead to very long lasting fear of social rejection, right? Fear of judgment, fear of being appeared as a loner or lonely, right? All of these things will kind of build up in that person, and that's how it may result in social anxiety in their later years. And the third one is abuse, right? It can be emotional, physical, or even sexual. So trauma from any form of abuse can deeply impact a person's sense of safety and self-worth, which in turn leads to, let's say, heightened anxiety in social gatherings, right? So like some people, let's say, who are victims of some form of sexual abuse, or even emotional, physical, from, let's say, maybe their partner, they tend to have this increased anxiety, right? Once they're maybe even out of the abuse, they will still have increased anxiety. They'll have more vigilance when it comes to, let's say, being around people of the opposite sex, right? Definitely, because of the learned behavior and the abuse that has been inbuilt, and the trauma that's been inbuilt in the person. And the final one is obviously life experiences, right? So whether it be maybe negative or embarrassing experiences, such as maybe public failure, right? Maybe one time you gave a speech, it was something happened, maybe you fell off the stage, just one instance, and some form of rejection or being singled out, it can really shape how someone views future social interactions, and kind of has this inbuilt fear, like, oh my god, what if this happens again, right? So these are some of the main causes. Of course, there can be various different, like, more unique causes depending on your individual case and individual situation. So kind of really generalizing is not the right way. So sometimes maybe going to a therapist or something to kind of really understand your cause, your root causes, your triggers can really help as well. So don't just think, oh, it's one of these four for me. Okay. So now I have a question for you guys, which is, what signs of social anxiety have you noticed in yourself or others around you? So from all the signs which we just, I spoke to you about and I kind of explained to you guys, I would like you to share which ones you have actually noticed in maybe yourself or those around you.
Hello, good afternoon.
Yes, hi Manisha.
I feel being judged, or I feel hesitation to talk or new people around me.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
I don't know. I think whenever I talk, that time I feel very nervous. I think some air are outing from my ear.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I mean, yeah, that's definitely a sign of social anxiety, and yeah, I think you have a bit of a mixture, right? Of I think emotional and physical. Okay. Yeah, Aditya says clammy hands and sweating and avoiding eye contact. Vanshika says hesitating while putting opinions among new people. Zainab says avoidance of social gatherings, not participating in any activities, being invisible or just blending in. Angela says judging myself after each interaction, criticizing myself if I said the wrong thing. Okay, Priya says avoiding eye contact. Kanvi says being in background, avoiding social gathering, being judged, just want to run away. Sneha says shiver and fumble with words like ah. Okay. Varsha says I've noticed these unhelpful thinking patterns in myself and others. Divyansa says, I feel scared that they will judge me. Anxious. Okay. Habiba says, anxiety attacks while giving speech, feel like being judged in people continuously regarding looks. Okay. Zainab says, avoiding a certain group of people, my classmates, because they bullied me my entire school life. So is that social anxiety? Yeah. Uh, Zainab, so if you're just avoiding like those people who did bully you, I don't think that would be characterized as social anxiety. But if you're applying this to pretty much everyone, like any group of people, then it can be social anxiety. But if you're just ignoring the people who bullied you, then that is not social anxiety. And then Nandini says feeling of self-consciousness, overthinking, sweating, problem in communicating. Kunal says breathlessness. Sunila says talking to authorities. Okay, mind reading, comparison, staying quiet, small talk. Definitely predicting. Okay. I tend to zone out and want to get out of the place as soon as possible. Okay. Habiba says I also get anxiety if I'm not getting enough attention. Okay. So not getting enough attention and getting anxiety because of that is not characteristic of social anxiety, but it can be some other form of anxiety or some, maybe some work may have to be done in the type of attachment style and personality you may be having. Yes, MD Rashid, you've raised your hand.
Yeah, ma'am, I generally face anxiety during the time when people are staring at my bald area, which I am going day by day bald. So they are staring at that part. So I feel that why they are watching at that part, they are figuring out that I am going bald. That's why they are watching me whenever I go outside in social area. So I feel
Right.
like that only.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, see, the thing is, the cause can be something, maybe due to your self-esteem, your self, your appearance, and what you view yourself in terms of how you feel you look,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
then it's kind of coming out.
I more prefer. I more give means I more give preference to the looks apart from
Mhm.
that personality. So
Right.
the major thing is that is only triggering point that I'm
Mhm.
obsessed with my looks. So
Right.
that is triggering me.
Yeah. So I think it's just coming out as social anxiety, but I think the root cause is something else with regards to self-image issues, etc. So it could be worth to just maybe check out a therapist to try and work with that, because you may have a lot of negative thinking patterns with regards to your self-image and those around you.
Okay, ma'am.
Yeah.
So I will have to go for therapy. So how many sessions will be required? They will tell all those things.
Yeah, so once you maybe book a first session with me, or even whoever you would like from MindTribe, then we can we'll get a better understanding. We'll try and understand your unique case, and then we can guide you after that.
Ma'am, someone mentioned eye contact also. I also face problem while making eye contact with anyone.
Mm-hmm.
So while making eye contact, I feel little bit unconscious and dizziness and sweaty palms like that. It seems to be.
Right.
So that may be also the reason that I'm getting social anxiety while facing new peoples and why they are staring at me. And some natural phenomena is there. One, if someone is going from here, automatically he will watch for a while. But I
Mm-hmm.
feel that why he's watching me. Then
Right.
again, I again stare at him. So he thinks. Then he automatically goes from there.
Mm-hmm.
Then the scenario ends. Like that
Right.
happens.
Right. Yeah, I mean, definitely it's worth to try out therapy to see if it can help you out in this you know case. And also you can stay for this workshop as well, and maybe pick up some uh healthy tips and techniques to help you with this as well.
Okay.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
Okay. um Okay, Ritika says blinking so much, looking here and there while talking. Okay. Mansi says my anxiety increased during exam season, is affecting reading and results. Okay. Pampi say shyness and mind reading, avoid eye contact, bullied in school life. Okay. Thank you guys for sharing. Yeah, Ritika, you've raised your hand.
Yes, ma'am. I just wanted to share that I have seen many people. They, they keep on moving from here to there. Like they don't stand at a position to talk, and they keep blinking their eyes or they fold their arms and then they stand. So that is like a different posture that you should. I feel that we should not stand while talking in fold arms. So that only I wanted to share.
Yeah. Yes, definitely. Thank you, Ritika, for sharing. Atik, you've also raised your hand.
Hello.
Yes.
Hello. Am I audible? Hello.
Yes, you are. You are.
Hi, Zana and everybody. Thank you for letting me speak. I want to say that I am a person who stutters. Okay, and it started back in school when I was bullied for being feminine, and since then it has, had a like really heavy toll on me. That nowadays the social anxiety is such that I'm not able to just go out and be confident, and I'm trying to just hold myself back and stay at home. So it is like really disturbing and very, what do I say? So yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah, definitely. I can understand, coming with that kind of a background and that type of a life experience can definitely be, very damaging towards your future interactions and social gatherings. So, yeah, makes sense. Thank you, Atik, for sharing. Manisha, yeah, you can go ahead.
I want to share my experience. After knowing my orientation, many people blocked me on social media, and I block some people in on social media because if they know about my orientation, might be problematic for me.
Yeah, definitely. That makes sense. It can be a lot, hard, especially, facing social rejection is also very tolling on mental health. So, yeah, so just, stay back for a few techniques. Maybe it can help you, or, you can also opt for therapy to see if you want a more personalized, help to overcome your social anxiety. Okay, guys, thank you so much for sharing your experiences, especially in the chat box and even unmuting yourself. I know it's a big step, especially to unmute yourself and kind of share such daunting experiences. So thank you. Yes, MD Rashid.
Yeah, ma'am. What will be the charges for counseling if we start for student? I'm a student, so what is the reasonable price we can get for counseling?
So my charges are, so the first session we offer at a discounted price of rupees 99, and then second session onwards, I charge 1,200. And yeah, so we don't have any specific student discount, but I can let you know we have packages. So in that we do have discounts. Maybe after the session, I will be dropping my details, so you can contact me and I'll let you know the details.
Okay, okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you. So guys, moving on. Since we are a little bit behind, so now we're going to be talking about when does one experience social anxiety. So first, it's in situations where it induces fear. Okay, so the first one is, let's say, performance situations, right, where you have to, where that you're going to be judged or scrutinized or assessed, right? Especially people who go to college. We have a lot of vivas, we have a lot of mocks. So during these situations, we may feel very flustered, and we may end up doing worse than what we actually, which is actually a true reflection of our capabilities, may not come through. So this is one example. Okay. Second is interaction and observation situations, right? So we tend to experience anxiety in social events where one has to interact with strangers specifically, right? So as spoken previously, and also in observation situations, which is characterized by the fear of being watched or observed by others. So these type of things is also very it kind of induced this kind of fear of being judged. So now we have a case study to try and understand fear-inducing situations. Okay, so John has always loved to play the piano. He started taking lessons when he was 6 years old, and he quickly became very talented. Okay, however, as he got older, he would get very nervous before recitals, and he would often make mistakes and thought negatively about himself. Okay, so then what happened is that he started, to avoid playing in front of others, and he even considered quitting piano altogether. Okay, so this is a form of obviously social anxiety where, although he's very talented and he's very capable, but because of the social anxiety, it kind of just, he could not show his true capabilities to those around him, right? And he just completely stopped playing piano altogether. So this is one example. And another example is Sarah has always been anxious in social situations. She would often blush and sweat when she talked to new people, and she would sometimes have trouble speaking. Sarah's anxiety began to interfere with her work life. She started to avoid meetings and presentations, and she even turned down a promotion because she was too anxious to speak in front of a group of people, right? So once again, see, we have a lot of physical symptoms showing, right? She blushes, she sweats, okay, and she stumbles, and she's also having a lot of avoidance-seeking behavior, such as avoiding meetings and presentations, to such an extent that, she legit turned down her promotion just because of this social anxiety. So it kind of just shows how, lasting and detrimental effects it can have on, even your career and your own, your skills and your talents. Okay, so now another occurrence when social anxiety kind of pops up is when you are, faced with social fears. Okay, so the first one is worry of inept behavior. So fear of acting in a way that, may lead to negative evaluation, rejection, disapproval, or humiliation when in public. So just being worried that, what if I appear dumb in front of people? So this kind of worry is one. And another one is this fear of disappointing people. Okay, so concern with the possibility of, maybe offending someone, hurting someone. Okay, social fear of doing something that maybe embarrasses others or makes them feel bad. So this kind of the fear of disappointing anyone at all can also, be a reason or when your social anxiety may pop up. Okay, and the third one is displaying symptoms of anxiety. Okay, so this is a common fear. So the primary fear is showing observable signs of anxiety, right? So even though that you have social anxiety, you are more scared that you don't want other people to see that you have the anxiety, right? So the main concern may be displaying physical reactions or the cracking of their voice. So they wouldn't want people to see that, oh my God, my hands are shaking or I'm trembling. So this kind of thing is also a fear. So a case study to kind of explain this is Nancy has had social anxiety since she was a child. She was afraid to speak up in class or participate in group activities. She would often blush and stammer when she talked to people, and she was always worried about saying the wrong thing. Okay, so when forced to interact with others, her voice would, crack, and maybe she would tremble. So then she dropped out of college because she couldn't handle the public speaking requirements. Okay, so once again, this kind of detrimental effects on career, on education, on, displaying one's capabilities of achieving what they want to do. So social anxiety may seem very, not that detrimental, but it can be very detrimental on people's, mental health and even their overall, various aspects of life. It can be relationships, it can be academics, it can be career, right? And another case study, to give you an example, is Sam. So he has excessive fear of having face-to-face contact with other people and has difficulty in maintaining eye contact. Okay, he would not look at anyone passing by him because of the fear that others might perceive his gaze to be offensive. So he interpreted others' nonverbal gestures and actions during conversations as signs that they were offended. So because of this, he kind of resorted to wearing a cap and avoiding eye contact. Okay, so this is again this this constant fear of disappointing someone or hurting someone or offending someone has kind of led him to completely stop eye contact and start wearing a cap and everything to hide his eyes. So now moving on to introversion and social anxiety and what are the difference. So who is an introvert? So an introvert is a person with qualities of a personality type known as introversion. Okay, and that basically means that they feel more comfortable and enjoy spending time with just themselves or maybe one or two people at max. Okay, and introverts tend to be more quiet, reserved, and introspective. It's a type of personality type. Okay, it's not any mental health condition or any disorder at all. So now when it comes to comparing between social anxiety and introversion, a lot of people get confused. Okay, but social anxiety is deeply rooted in fear versus introversion is just an innate need or a personality type, okay, which is not, let's say, destructive to any aspect of your life. It's just a way of living, right? Where social anxiety disrupts a lot of aspects of your life, like shown in the various different case studies that I explained to you. Okay, and social anxiety tends to make you avoid social situations, right? But introverts enjoy social situations. It's just that they just prefer to be in a smaller, cycle of friends rather than having large groups of people and, interacting very lively with pretty much everyone. So they just have a low, span of energy, whereas extroverts have a lot more. Okay, that's about it. In terms of, so social anxiety, there's a lot of concern of being judged. Okay, whereas introversion, there's it's not because of any judgment or any self-esteem issues or anything like that. They just have a it's a style where they kind of focus their energy inwards rather than outwards. So to summarize, introversion is a personality trait, okay, and it isn't something that needs any fixing. It's just a way of being, okay, whereas social anxiety is a problem and can have very detrimental impacts on various aspects of your life. Okay, so now a lot of people question that do extroverts also suffer from social anxiety? Okay, and so the thing is, they do. Okay, it's not that just because they're extroverted, they cannot suffer from social anxiety and only introverts do. That's not the case. Okay, so how you can identify that this person is an extrovert and also has social anxiety is that they crave social interaction, but they still feel anxious about how they're perceived. Okay, so even though they crave the interaction, they're still very worried about how they're viewed, how they're judged, how they're perceived. Okay, so they have this constant worry in their mind as well. And although they may be great at talking with people, they overthink or panic beforehand or afterward. Okay, so they have this constant panic, this constant apprehension, this worry as well. And what extroverts tend to do is that they hide their anxiety behind humor and charisma, okay, or being overly talkative. But this is just their way because extroversion is a type of being, right? So what they do is they adopt extroversion as a way to kind of hide or mask their social anxiety through being overly talkative or using humor, right? Or using their, charismatic personality. So that kind of thing. Okay. And sometimes, those extroverts who maybe have a lot of intense social anxiety, they tend to avoid certain social situations, right? Even if they may want to be involved, maybe they have a longing to be involved, but because of this intense fear, this intense form of social anxiety, they will avoid it. Okay, so Adya says, what does an introvert with social anxiety look like? Okay, so see, introverts can it's basically normal. The signs, symptoms which I explain of social anxiety, it's exactly the same, right? But with introverts, it's exactly how I explain. The difference is in extrovert people who have social anxiety. I hope that makes sense. Adya? Okay, guys. So just like on YouTube, if it's free, there's an ad. Okay, so have a look at this. I'll just take you through the short presentation on one-on-one therapy with MindTribe. So what is one-on-one counseling? So essentially, it's a personalized confidential session between a client and a trained therapist. It kind of helps with, personal growth, problem solving, and goal setting in various different aspects of your life. It doesn't just have to be, a certain, maybe one or two aspect. And certain counseling misconception is that counseling is only for those who are, sick or mentally sick, or maybe have some disorder diagnosed. But that's not the case. Counseling can be for anyone who just wants to be a better version of themselves in terms of better relationships, more friends, academic success, career advancement, right? Self-esteem upliftment, confidence upliftment, anything pretty much. Okay, just to get an overall better version of themselves and to achieve a better, better well-being. So why choose MindTribe counseling? So our team consists of experienced and skilled therapists, right? We have very affordable charges, and it ranges from 800 to 2,400 depending on the level and seniority of the counselor. As mentioned, our first sessions are at a discounted price of rupees 99, and we also do offer packages that once you're comfortable, you can invest in the very good budget-friendly counseling packages to help you and have a more consistent mental health journey. Okay, if anyone has any urgent questions regarding therapy with MindTribe, you can ask now. Okay, Adya, what I meant was that an introvert, so remember I explained the signs and symptoms in the beginning of social anxiety. So introverts are like that itself. So those are the signs and symptoms that even introverts will go through. What is a little different was extroverts with social anxiety, and that was explained just a few slides back. Okay, guys. So now, moving on to the myths associated with social anxiety. Yes, Nandini?
Hello, ma'am.
Yeah, hi.
The question is that a person who is introvert do have social anxiety, or a person who suffers from social anxiety is introvert. What would be the right term?
It would be introverts can have social anxiety, but it's not necessary that everyone who has social anxiety is an introvert.
Okay. Thank you.
Yeah, no problem. Okay, guys. So the first myth is that social anxiety is same as being nervous. Okay, that is not the case. Sometimes nervousness is a good sign, right? It helps you, it boosts you to perform to the best of your ability. But so hence the reality is actually that social anxiety brings with it a variety of symptoms, right? It's not just nervousness, it's a plethora of, different physical symptoms, behavioral symptoms, cognitive symptoms, right? And the second myth is social anxiety is something you have to live with, right? That is not the case. Social anxiety is not a situation that someone has to live with, right? With a good coping mechanism, with good maybe taking one-on-one therapy and different cognitive exercises, people can overcome social anxiety and they do not have to live with it, right? Sometimes social anxiety can also be a very temporary, anxiety that some individuals may go through because of certain experiences. So it's not something that, you have to live with and, you kind of like, oh, I'm born with it, so I have to die with it. It's not like that. Okay. And the third one is being shy equals to being socially anxious. So the reality actually is shyness is an adaptive mechanism. Okay. It's not, does not mean that, you're socially anxious and you have social anxiety. And then the fourth myth is social anxiety is having the fear of public speaking only. That is not the case. Okay, as explained to you guys, that is just one form of social anxiety. Social anxiety can come in different shapes and forms, right? And it includes a variety of social and performance situations. And sometimes it can be like, something totally inward as well. That's some sort of fear inward rather than, maybe performance based or situation based. Okay, so now we're moving on to effects of social anxiety. So trying to understand the impacts and how people may be coping with social anxiety. So the first one is that people tend to adapt certain behaviors which are known as safety behaviors. So safety behaviors are used as an attempt to prevent fears from coming true. Okay, it makes one feel more comfortable in anxious situations. And it's not exactly what one does, it's actually why one is doing that, right? Which determines whether something is considered safety behavior or not. Now, some examples of safety behaviors is, staying quiet in social situations. So this is a form of safety behavior because it kind of brings about the notion, if I talk, I might say something stupid and I would feel humiliated. So I just won't talk. Okay, so just not talking is a safety behavior. And essentially it is unhealthy, but it's a behavior that just kind of, temporarily takes you out of that anxiety or takes you out of that anxious situation. Okay. Another example is bringing my water bottle everywhere. Okay, so if I get anxious, I'll get a dry mouth and choke, and that's why I bring a water bottle all the time. So I just take a sip whenever I'm feeling dry mouthed. So then I just drink water. So this is again another safety behavior to try and basically, kind of limit the other people noticing that this person may be anxious, or this person is like about to choke, or this person has a dry mouth. So that's why they bring a water bottle, just to not be openly visible that they may have anxiety. Yes, Sneha, drinking water is definitely normal, but they're bringing it for the reason so that they kind of hide the fact that they're getting anxious and they're getting a dry mouth and they're choking. So for that reason, they're bringing a water bottle with them everywhere that they go. So that's the point. Yeah. Okay, and then the next example is not touching things in public. So it's the thought process that if I touch something, I might break it and people might laugh at me and judge me to be clumsy. So that's why I just won't touch anything. So this again is a form of safety behavior. Okay, and then the next one is wearing headphones on public transport. Again, this is for the reason that if someone tried to speak to me, I wouldn't know what to say and they would think I'm an idiot. So they would that's why you're just putting on headphones that, so it kind of just closes that space or that room for people to approach you. Okay. So now what is the problem with safety behaviors and why are they actually in the long run not good for us? So first of all, it kind of stops one from facing their fears. Okay, so that anxiety, that issue, those negative thoughts about a certain situation will still forever be there, right? They will still be troubling you. Secondly, it leads to outcomes one wants to prevent. Okay. And the third one is dependency. So you end up being very dependent. Like, for example, the water bottle situation. You legit will come to such a point that you will feel anxious if you forget your water bottle. Right? So that's another anxiety added to your lists of anxiety, right? And then again, dependency on headphones. So let's say one day maybe your headphones stop working during your journey. that will create another form of anxiety because now your headphones are not working. So what do you do? So it forms this kind of dependency. And, again, if something happens with that item that you're dependent on, you will experience withdrawal symptoms, right? And then the final one is self-focused attention. So the problem with safety behaviors is that, it just increases the focus inward, and it increases your attention on yourself, and it just increases your, those different negative patterns that you may have of yourself, of, those negative things like, people think I'm ugly, people will judge me, this kind of thing. Okay. So now, when we talk about negative thinking patterns, so a lot of people with social anxiety, a very common characteristic is that they have some form of negative thinking pattern or negative cognitive style. Okay, and the 4 types are, number 1 is catastrophizing, which I mentioned already, which is imagining the worst possible outcome, even if it's unlikely. Okay. So, and then the next one is mind reading. Okay. So assuming you know what others are thinking, and it's usually negative. So you just assume that even though there's no, proper evidence to prove that this is what those people are thinking. Okay. And another one is black and white thinking. So it's also known as all or nothing thinking, which is seeing things in extremes with no middle ground. Okay. So an example of this would be, if I'm not perfect, I'm a failure, right? Or if they didn't smile at me, then they hate me. Okay, so these kind of things. And then the final one is filtering, also known as mental filtering. So what this is that you kind of focus only on the negative parts of a situation and you ignore the positives. Okay, so you kind of just draw your attention to all the negatives and you just absorb the negativity and the negative thoughts, and you do not pick up on the positive things. Now moving on to negative coping techniques that people with social anxiety kind of have. The first one is, of course, avoidance, right? Avoiding social situations or activities that kind of trigger their anxiety. It may seem like an easy way out, but it actually it reinforces the belief that these situations are dangerous, right? Making your mind more stronger on the fact that, okay, so this anxiety is true, this anxiety is actually, these thoughts are actually dangerous. So it just basically makes your anxiety stronger. It gives the strength to your anxiety, fuels your anxiety. Okay, and it just consistently makes it harder to face them in the future. Okay. Next one is ruminating on negative thoughts. So overthinking and replaying situations over and over in your head, right? Focusing on mistakes or perceived flaws. This keeps anxiety high and doesn't allow for a healthy perspective or resolution. Okay. Third one is withdrawal and essentially isolating yourself from others or retreating from social interactions in general. So while this may provide temporary relief, it can lead to loneliness. It can, reinforce anxiety. It reduces opportunities for social growth, etc. And the final one is negative self-talk. So what people tend to do is they use harsh or self-critical language towards themselves. Okay, and this kind of worsens their self-esteem and also increases feelings of shame or inadequacy. Okay, so this negative inner dialogue kind of feeds into the cycle of anxiety and reinforces the anxiety, making it stronger. Okay, so now we've come to the coping part of the presentation, which is the last part. And this will basically help you try and change these, unhealthy or negative coping techniques that you guys may be incorporating. So just, pay attention. So we have 4 different types. The first one is challenge irrational thoughts. So what it essentially is that often anxiety is fueled by distorted thinking, right? For example, assuming the worst will happen, right? Or overgeneralizing. So what this technique involves is that you first identify negative automatic thoughts and you ask yourself, right, is this thought based on facts or fear? Or maybe what evidence do I have for and against this belief? Right. So what this does is it gradually helps you replace irrational thoughts with more balanced, realistic ones, which reduce anxiety and builds confidence. Now, of course, this technique cannot be done on your own because it's very hard to get that balance, to get that bias-free thoughts out there, and to understand the evidence and for and against the belief. Hence, this is a very good technique to be used in therapy with your therapist. Number 2 is relaxation techniques and facing fears. Okay, so relaxation techniques like deep breathing, PMR, so progressive muscle relaxation, mindfulness, or visualization can really help calm the body's stress response system and really bring your body back to a very neutral state, calm state. Okay, and facing fears is about gradual exposure. So instead of avoiding situations that cause anxiety, you should try and approach them step by step at a manageable pace. Okay, and kind of combining both, so combining exposure and relaxation can help you stay calm while building courage rather than letting fear dictate your actions. Okay, the third one is practice social skills. So sometimes anxiety kind of grows because of a lack of practice in social settings, right? Because if you altogether just avoid social settings, you kind of lose the practice. You kind of lose the, the etiquette, how to behave in social gatherings, what to do in social gatherings. So by practicing skills, like, starting conversations, active listening, maintaining eye contact, and using open body language, it kind of helps you become more comfortable and confident socially. Okay, so how you could do this is, try role playing with a therapist, role playing with a friend, right? Joining a supportive group or practicing small talk in low pressure situations can be very helpful to try and reduce and, weaken the anxiety cycle that you have got going. Okay, and the final one is practice acts of kindness. So doing small, genuine acts of kindness, right? For example, helping someone, complimenting a colleague, kind of helps shift your focus away from, being self-focused and self-consciousness. And it helps, shift you towards a positive social interaction mindset. Okay. And also these kind of kindness also helps boost your self-esteem, create social bonds, and also help you experience positive feedback from others, right? So if you compliment someone, you're bound to get a compliment back, right? So it just helps with boosting your self-esteem, your confidence, and also making your social experiences less intimidating. So yeah, that's just a little bit about certain healthy coping techniques or mechanisms that you can try and incorporate in your daily life. Other than that, if any of you guys have any questions, you can ask me. We've kind of come towards the end of the workshop. Thank you guys for staying. So yeah, we have just a little bit of information about MindTribe counseling offerings. We have, affordable counseling. We have group therapies going on, weekly group therapies, which you can also, benefit from. Yeah, so that's about it. If anyone has any questions, you can stay back and ask me, or you can feel free to leave now. Thank you guys for joining, and I hope this workshop was beneficial.